The smoke hit me before I even saw the flames. I was standing on the curb, phone in hand, and my heart completely stopped. My house, the place I'd built my life, my memories, everything, was engulfed in fire. And then I saw her. My mom, my own mother, sitting on the lawn with her phone pointed straight at the house, laughing like this was some kind of twisted entertainment show. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just stared, my mind screaming, why? Why would she do this? And there she was, filming every single second, as if my life burning to the ground was the greatest comedy she'd ever witnessed. The neighbors were panicking, firefighters were rushing in, and all I could do was watch my childhood, my achievements, my sanctuary, everything turn to ash. When the fire trucks finally came and the chaos settled, I was left in a stunned daze. My mom put her phone down, still smirking, like she'd won some unspoken game. I wanted to scream, I wanted to attack, but instead, I swallowed down my anger, my blood boiling hotter than the flames that had consumed my home. And I knew one thing: I couldn't let this go. I went back to the rubble the next day, the smell of smoke still choking me. Every corner of the house was charred, every personal item blackened beyond recognition. Old photo albums, my childhood toys, even my laptop with all my important files, gone. And the worst part, my mom, sitting on the porch, sipping her coffee, as calm and cheerful as ever. She didn't seem the slightest bit remorseful. Something inside me snapped. I knew revenge wasn't just an option, it was inevitable. But it wouldn't be random. It wouldn't be petty. It had to be perfect, undeniable, and unforgettable. I began thinking, planning, observing her routines, her pride, her weaknesses. Every laugh she'd given that day, every smug smile, it became fuel. My mind raced with possibilities, strategies, and the slow, burning anticipation of sweet, calculated payback. That night, I barely slept. I went over every detail, imagining the perfect moments of her shock, her disbelief, the satisfaction I would feel watching her finally realize she wasn't untouchable. I wasn't just planning revenge, I was planning justice, meticulously, brilliantly, and the fire that had tried to destroy me, it only lit the fire within me. Can you imagine watching the person who is supposed to love you the most, deliberately enjoying your suffering? That raw betrayal, trust ripped from me like torn paper, was the beginning of my transformation. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a strategist, a storm gathering strength, and nothing would stop me from claiming the satisfaction I deserved. Little did she know, she'd just sparked a series of events that would make her regret ever laughing that day. And the best part? I hadn't even begun. The morning after the fire, I woke up with my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. My body felt heavy, like I'd been carrying bricks in my chest all night. For a split second I forgot. Then the smell of smoke seemed to crawl back into my nose, and everything came rushing in at once. The flames, the laughter. My mom's phone held up like a trophy. I wasn't staying with her. That much was non-negotiable. I crashed on a friend's couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second on a brutal loop. The more I thought about it, the clearer something became. The fire itself wasn't even the worst part. Accidents happen, wiring fails. Fires start. What destroyed me was her reaction. The joy, the performance, the way she wanted proof of my pain. And that's when it clicked. My mom didn't just enjoy watching me suffer. She needed an audience. Growing up, she was always like that. Everything in her life was a story she told other people. Her sacrifices, her struggles, her ungrateful daughter. I was never a person to her, just a character she could frame however she wanted. She posted vague quotes about betrayal on Facebook, cried on cue at family gatherings, and somehow always walked away looking like the victim. That's why the video mattered so much. It wasn't just cruel, it was leverage. I asked myself one question over and over. What does she value more than anything? The answer came instantly, her image, her reputation, the way people saw her. So I stopped crying. I stopped spiraling. I started observing. I went back to the burned house under the excuse of salvaging paperwork. She was there, hovering, pretending to help. I watched her movements, the way she angled her phone even when she claimed she wasn't recording. I noticed how she casually mentioned the fire to neighbors, already shaping the narrative. "She's so dramatic," she said once, laughing. You know how she is. Every word she spoke was another brick in the road I was building. A few days later, I asked her about the video. I kept my voice soft, almost fragile. I told her I wanted it for insurance purposes. She didn't even hesitate. She smiled and said, "Of course, honey." Like she was doing me a favor. When she sent it to me, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. There it was, my house burning, her voice in the background. Laughing, joking, making comments about how, at least now she'll have to grow up. At one point, she zoomed in on the flames and said, clear as day, "This is what happens when you think you're better than your own mother." I watched it 3 times. The first time I cried. The second time I felt numb. The third time, something inside me went ice cold. She had handed me everything. I didn't confront her, not yet. I acted grateful. I even hugged her when I saw her next, feeling her stiffen in surprise. I told her I was overwhelmed and needed time to process. She nodded, already bored, already moving on. Behind the scenes, I was laying groundwork. I backed up the video in multiple places. Cloud storage, a hard drive. An email to myself, I wasn't losing it. Then I started quietly talking to people. Not accusing, not ranting. Just sharing how hard it was to watch the footage, letting them ask questions, letting curiosity do the work for me. I reached out to my aunt first, the one who always defended my mom no matter what. I told her I was struggling and asked if she could watch something and tell me if I was overreacting. That word, overreacting, was bait. My aunt bit instantly. 10 minutes after she watched it, she called me. She didn't even say hello. "What the hell is wrong with your mother?" she asked. That was the moment I knew this would work. But I wasn't done, not even close. Because embarrassment wasn't enough. I didn't want my mom to just feel exposed. I wanted her to feel powerless, the same way I had, standing on that curb, watching my life burn while she laughed behind a camera lens. So I kept going carefully, quietly, patiently. And all the while, my mom had no idea she was walking straight into the fire she'd started herself. Once the first crack appeared in her perfect image, I knew I couldn't rush things. My mom had survived decades by twisting stories and playing innocent. If I went too fast, she'd flip the script and somehow make herself the wounded parent again. So I slowed down, I became careful, strategic, almost invisible. Outwardly, I was the broken daughter trying to rebuild her life. I talked about insurance claims, temporary housing, and how exhausting everything felt. People sympathized. They brought casseroles. They shook their heads and said things like, "I don't know how you're holding up." Inside, though, I was calculating. I started mapping out her social world like a web. Family group chats, church friends, old co-workers, her favorite audience, people who admired her strength and sacrifices. These were the people she lived for. The people whose opinions mattered more to her than mine ever had. I didn't send the video to all of them. That would have been sloppy. Instead, I chose just a few key people, connectors. The kind who couldn't keep quiet even if their lives depended on it. I framed it carefully every time. I don't want drama. I'm not trying to turn anyone against her. I just don't know how to feel after seeing this. I let them watch. I stayed silent while the video played. I watched their faces change the same way mine had. Confusion first, then discomfort, then shock. The laughter in the background always landed like a punch. One woman actually covered her mouth and whispered, "Oh my God." That reaction, that was everything. Within a week, things started shifting, subtly at first. My mom stopped getting invited to certain lunches. People became cooler, more distant. Conversations went quiet when she walked into a room. She noticed, of course she did. She thrived on attention, good or bad. But this was different. This was judgment. She called me one evening, her voice sharp and fake sweet. "Have you been saying things about me?" I leaned against the counter, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding, but my voice stayed calm. "Saying what?" She hesitated. That pause told me everything. She didn't know who knew. She didn't know how far it had spread. And that uncertainty was starting to eat at her. "People are acting weird," she snapped. "They're looking at me like I'm some kind of monster." I almost laughed, almost. Instead, I said softly, "I showed a couple people the video. I needed support. I didn't think it was a secret." The silence on the other end was long, heavy. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. Not with guilt, but with fear. "You had no right," she hissed. "No right, that was Rich." I reminded her, very calmly, that she was the one who filmed it. She was the one who laughed. I hadn't edited anything. I hadn't added commentary. I'd just let people see her. She hung up on me. After that, things escalated quickly. She started posting inspirational quotes online. You know the kind. A mother's love is often misunderstood. Even saints are painted as villains by ungrateful hearts. It was obvious what she was doing, trying to regain control, trying to rally sympathy before the story could fully take shape without her. But it was too late. Someone commented under one of her posts, "Did you really laugh while your daughter's house burned?" I wasn't there when she saw it, but I can picture it perfectly. Her phone in her hand, her breath catching, the sudden realization that this wasn't contained anymore, that the narrative wasn't hers to control. She called me again that night. This time she was crying, loud, dramatic sobs. She said I was destroying her, that people were turning on her, that I was cruel and heartless. I listened quietly. Then she said something that made my stomach flip. Not with anger, but with clarity. "If you don't fix this," she said, "I don't know what I'll do." There it was, the threat, the emotional manipulation. Same tactics, different day. And that's when I realized something important. Public shame was only part of the revenge. The real payoff was still ahead, because my mom didn't just care about what people thought. She cared about what she had. And soon, she was going to lose something she never expected me to touch. After that phone call, I sat in silence for a long time, staring at the wall, replaying her words over and over. "If you don't fix this, I don't know what I'll do." It was the same line she'd used my entire life, whenever she felt cornered, whenever consequences got too close. It was never about remorse, only control. And for the first time, it didn't work on me, because while she was panicking about whispers and comments, I was thinking about something much bigger, something tangible, something she relied on every single day. My mom didn't have much, but what she did have, she guarded fiercely. Her house, not just a place to live, her pride. Her proof to the world that she'd made it. She talked about it constantly, how hard she worked for it, how she deserved it, how it would one day be passed down. Though never to me, she made that clear. What most people didn't know was how fragile that house really was. Years earlier, after my dad left, she'd nearly lost it. Missed payments, late fees, notices taped to the door. I was barely out of college when she came crying to me, saying she just needed temporary help. I drained my savings, co-signed paperwork I shouldn't have trusted, took on risk so she wouldn't lose face. She promised she'd refinance. She promised she'd protect me. She lied. After the fire, while sorting through my own insurance mess, I finally looked at the old documents she'd made me sign. Really looked and my stomach dropped. My name wasn't just on a loan. It was tied to the property itself. Quietly, legally, undeniably. She had used my credit to stabilize her house, without ever telling me the full truth. I felt sick, angry, but also focused, because that meant something important. I wasn't powerless. I booked a consultation with a lawyer. I didn't go in emotional. I went in prepared documents, dates, screenshots, the video, everything. When I finished explaining, the lawyer leaned back in their chair and said, "You have more leverage than you think." Those words sent a chill through me. Legally, I had options, serious ones that could force a sale, ones that could expose financial misrepresentation, ones that would drag everything she'd hidden into the light. I didn't need to destroy her. I just needed to let the truth exist officially. I didn't act right away. Instead, I gave her rope. I let her spiral online. I let her complain to relatives. I let her dig herself deeper, painting herself as the victim of an ungrateful daughter, while never denying the video outright. That silence, people noticed it. Then I asked her to meet me. Public place, quiet cafe. Neutral territory. She arrived tense, sunglasses on, shoulders stiff. She didn't hug me. She didn't even ask how I was. She went straight to accusations, how I'd humiliated her, how I'd ruined her standing, how everyone was judging her unfairly. I waited until she ran out of steam. Then I slid a folder across the table. She frowned, opened it, and went pale. Inside were copies of the documents. Highlighted sections, my name. Legal language she didn't understand but instantly feared. I watched her hands start to shake. "What is this?" she whispered. I kept my voice calm, steady, almost gentle. "This," I said, "is me finally understanding what you did." She tried to laugh it off at first, said I was misreading things, said I was being dramatic again. But I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just let the silence stretch while she flipped pages faster and faster. Then she looked up at me, eyes wide. "You wouldn't," she said, not a question. A plea. And in that moment, watching the woman who laughed while my house burned finally feel afraid. I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, relief. Because now she knew she wasn't in control anymore, and she had no idea how far I was willing to go. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The version of me sitting across that cafe table wasn't the daughter she could guilt, scare, or steamroll anymore. I could see it in the way her mouth opened and closed without words coming out. Control was slipping, and she didn't know how to grab it back. "You're bluffing," she finally said, her voice low and sharp. "You wouldn't do that to your own mother." I took a slow sip of my coffee, buying myself a second. "You filmed my house burning and laughed," I replied quietly. "So let's not pretend we're playing by some sacred rule book anymore." Her face flushed red. People at nearby tables glanced over. She hated scenes. She lived for attention, but only when she controlled it. This terrified her. "You're being vindictive," she snapped. "I made one mistake, one stupid moment. And you're trying to ruin my life over it. One mistake." I thought of the flames eating through my living room, the photos I'd never get back, the nights I lay awake wondering how my own mother could enjoy my pain. I leaned forward slightly, keeping my voice calm but firm. "This isn't about the video," I said. "It's about everything, the lies, the paperwork, using my credit without telling me the truth, treating me like a prop in your story." Her jaw tightened. I'd hit something real. For the first time, she tried a different tactic. She softened, her shoulders slumped. Tears welled in her eyes like they were on cue. "I did my best," she whispered. "I sacrificed everything for you." There it was. The line she'd used my whole life. And for the first time, I didn't rush to comfort her. "I'm not asking for apologies," I said. "I'm telling you what's going to happen." That's when her fear finally broke through the act. "What do you want?" she asked. I paused. Not for drama, but because I wanted to be precise. Revenge wasn't about chaos, it was about balance. "I want my name removed from everything," I said. "Refinance properly, no delays. No excuses. And I want a written acknowledgement that you filmed that video and that it was wrong." Her eyes widened. "You want me to admit that?" "Yes." She shook her head slowly. "People would destroy me," I met her gaze. "That's already happening. This is the part where you decide how bad it gets." We sat there in silence, the weight of it settling between us. I could almost hear her calculating how much she could lose, how much she could save. Pride versus survival. Finally, she nodded. Once stiffly. "Fine," she said. "But you stop spreading the video." I didn't smile. "I never spread it," I said truthfully. "I just didn't hide it." That distinction mattered. Over the next few weeks, I watched her scramble. Appointments, phone calls, late-night texts asking for clarification she should have understood years ago. For once, she was the one exhausted, stressed, unsure. I stayed polite, distant, unmoved. And then something unexpected happened. The bank started asking questions. Apparently, during the refinancing process, inconsistencies popped up. Old forms, missing disclosures. Things she'd brushed past before suddenly mattered, very much. I got a call one afternoon from a representative asking me to confirm details I didn't even know existed. When I told them the truth, that I hadn't been fully informed, they went quiet. That was the moment I realized I didn't have to push anymore. The system was doing it for me. She called me that night frantic. Her voice cracked, real panic this time. "They're saying there could be penalties," she said. "That I might not qualify. That I could lose the house." I closed my eyes and felt a strange calm wash over me. "I guess that's what happens," I said softly. "When things catch fire and everyone finally sees." She didn't reply, and for the first time since the flames, the silence didn't hurt me. It protected me. Over the next few days, I stayed low. I didn't call her, I didn't message her. I let her flounder, trying to piece together a house, a reputation, and the control she had lost. It was fascinating, in a dark, satisfying way, to watch someone so accustomed to being untouchable scramble under pressure. She tried to rally support from relatives, neighbors, even co-workers. She posted half apologies online, vague explanations and inspirational quotes, her usual armor. But this time the armor had cracks, and everyone could see them. The people she had manipulated for years were starting to notice the inconsistencies, the excuses, the deflections. One evening, I got a text from my aunt, the same one who had watched the video earlier. It simply said, "I can't believe she did this." I thought she was untouchable. I smiled, small, quiet, but it was a satisfaction unlike any I had felt before. It wasn't vindictive gloating. It was justice. Karma in motion. Meanwhile, my mom tried to regain some semblance of power. She called me repeatedly, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes pleading. But every time she did, I stayed calm. I didn't answer impulsively. I let her voicemail pile up. I let her emails go unanswered for hours. The unpredictability of my responses made her anxious in ways I had never seen before. Then came the final piece, the insurance company. A claim they had initially disputed because of discrepancies in documents suddenly went in my favor. My mom had tried to cheat the process, but the evidence was now undeniable, thanks in part to the trail she had left herself. The day she realized the claim was being processed against her negligence, I could almost see her pale face through the phone as she called, her usual composure completely shattered. This isn't happening," she muttered. "Yes, it is," I said quietly, letting the words linger. "Just like the fire, just like the video, just like the truth you tried to hide." Her breathing got erratic. She tried to argue, tried to manipulate, but it was futile. She had set the entire stage for this moment, and now she was trapped in her own web of deceit. For weeks afterward, the shift was noticeable. She became quieter, more reserved. People who had once fawned over her started questioning small things, her stories, her reactions. The facade she had perfected for decades was cracking, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I didn't gloat publicly. I didn't send the video to anyone else. I let the consequences unfold naturally. Every interaction she had now carried weight, and every misstep she made reminded her, silently, painfully, that I wasn't powerless. I had regained control, and the scales were finally balanced. For the first time since the fire, I slept through the night without nightmares. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was standing tall, calm, and unshaken. The laughter she had once wielded as a weapon no longer had power over me. The fire that tried to consume my life had only forged my resolve, and though I would never admit it aloud, I savored the quiet, slow burn of justice. Watching someone who once laughed at your pain face the consequences was indescribably satisfying. By this point, months had passed since the fire. Life around me had started to stabilize. I rebuilt my apartment, replaced the things that could be replaced, and slowly reclaimed a sense of normalcy. But the story wasn't over, not yet. The best part of revenge isn't just punishment. It's the lesson. And my mom still had one to learn. I noticed the subtle changes immediately. Family gatherings became tense. She tried to make jokes about the fire, about overreacting daughters, but no one laughed. Friends who had once admired her now looked at her with quiet scrutiny. Every word she said carried the weight of that infamous video and the consequences that followed. I remember one evening, sitting across from her at a distant cousin's birthday party. She tried the usual smirk, the shrug, pretending nothing had happened. But I saw it in her eyes, the uncertainty, the fear of judgment, the realization that she had lost control. And I couldn't help but smile inwardly. It wasn't cruelty, it was justice. It was watching someone understand, finally, the gravity of their actions. She tried small manipulations afterward, subtle jabs, passive-aggressive comments. I met each one with calm neutrality. Not a word too many, not a reaction. The fire had taught me patience. The laughter had taught me precision. And now, armed with both, I was untouchable. The final moment came unexpectedly. A neighbor approached me weeks later, quietly. "I never thought I'd say this," they said, glancing at my mom. "But she's changed. She's quieter, she doesn't brag. She doesn't talk down to anyone. She's different," I nodded. That's all I needed to hear. It wasn't about revenge theatrics anymore. It was about the ripple effect of accountability. The fire, the video, the exposure. They all culminated in something far more satisfying than shouting or confrontation could ever achieve. One late evening, I sat alone with a cup of tea, reflecting on the months that had passed. My mom called once again, voice trembling. But this time I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel tension. I listened as she spoke, and for the first time I felt a strange sense of closure. She wasn't the same person. She had lost her control, her audience, and a bit of her arrogance. And I had survived, grown stronger, and reclaimed what was mine. The lessons lingered. Betrayal cuts deep, but careful planning, patience, and strategic action can turn even the worst situation into a story of justice. The fire had destroyed a house, yes, but it also ignited something far stronger: the confidence and clarity to stand tall, unshaken, and ultimately victorious. I looked out the window at the quiet neighborhood, thinking back to that day, the smoke rising, the laughter echoing, and I smiled, not out of malice but out of triumph. The scales were balanced, karma had spoken, and she would never forget it.